Hi, I am Kajer on two wheels, and today we're going to learn how to brake. Braking on a motorcycle has techniques. Not just hammering the levers and the foot pedal. There's finesse to it. And why is there finesse to it? Well, imagine a motorcycle like this that weighs 200 kilograms, this weighs less, and has a 50-50 weight distribution, which is not true on this one, on nearly any other. So that means there's 100 kilograms on the front wheel and 100 kilograms on the rear wheel. Again, this is just oversimplified so you get an idea. So you start braking. What happens when you start braking? Inertia tries to keep the bike moving forward at the same speed. That's why you tend to drop down to the front when you brake on a bike or a car. That dropping down forwards that you feel on your body also happens to the bike, and that is transmitted through the suspension down to the wheel. So what happens is that you're shifting weight from the rear wheel to the front wheel. Let's say in the middle of the braking, your front wheel now has a load, weight on it of 150 kilograms, and the rear wheel only has 50. So 50 kilograms went from the rear to the front. I'm not even considering the driver weight, so that's how high level we're talking about here. So as you can see, when you brake, as you brake, your front wheel gains grip because there's more weight on it, pushing it down onto the road, and the rear wheel loses weight, loses grip as the braking progresses. That's why on all motorcycles, braking is around 80% front, 20% rear. In the wet it's a bit different, but you get the idea. Some people wrongly say and keep affirming incorrectly that you should brake with the rear and just a bit with the front. That might be true on bicycles, and it's not true on bicycles anyway. But that's because usually those people, and you will notice this is a trend, they usually ride scooters or choppers. And that's because those bikes in particular have a lot of weight on the rear. So their rear brakes are much more effective than normally. So they can be a bit more usable. On most motorcycles, the rear brake doesn't do much, just slows you down a bit. They're very small because you don't really need it. And as soon as you start braking a lot, it locks up. So it's a bit window dressing almost. It's needed, but not that much. Again, 20%, 80 at the front. The front is where everything brakes. And even on scooters and choppers, you should brake with the front, mostly because that's where the braking power is. The technique itself and why this is where the braking power is at the front is a bit more complex. So let's show.
So, welcome aboard. First thing, the technique. The braking technique itself is a bit odd. So you're not going to do like this. Although nowadays, since all bikes have ABS, because it's mandatory in the EU, you can do this and the bike will brake and you will not die, okay? But it is not ideal as I am going to show. The correct technique is like this. 2 fingers is the best way. Initially you're not going to be at ease, so let's go with 4, but you want to progress to use 2 because 2 will prevent you from doing it wrong. And the right way to do it is you hear this click? This is the activation for the red light, and it's also around here that it starts to brake. So you quickly pull it to where it starts to brake. And as you reach this part where the brake pads engage, the bike starts diving forward. And as it dives, you apply then slowly more and more pressure until at some point the bike is completely dived in, and then you can put as much force as you can. You can try to brake the whole lever and the front wheel will not break grip. At the very worst, what's going to happen is that the rear wheel is going to start coming up and then you have to release a little bit. If you just plunk on the ABS, you're still standing up with 100 kilograms at the front, 100 kilograms at the rear, as we just discussed. You suddenly brake, and what happens is you don't have enough grip on the front wheel, so it's going to brake, lock up, the ABS is going to activate, unlock, and then brake again. And so instead of smoothly diving forward and then applying full brakes, you're going to go like this. And this will extend your braking distance enough. That's the difference between coming close to a car or sitting on its rear seat. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate that now. So how am I going to demonstrate this? Let's get off the bike. I am going to come at 50 kph and brake when I pass those two white rocks. This is where I stopped last time I did this with ABS. Just plunk on the brakes. This is my stopping distance for ABS. This is where I stopped in the previous video in Portuguese at 60 kilometers per hour doing the proper brake. But I'll show you. Let's not just tell, let's show. First off, the wrong way to brake. Let's wait for him to scram. Okay, he's gone. So around 50 and brake. Huh, what do you know? Right on cue. Look at this. Okay, fine, it's within tolerances. I found that the whole range with ABS, because it depends how it locks, unlocks, etc. It's about from here to around here. It's like one bike's length, but this marks where the axis was on the last brake. So last brake I was here, this time I managed to do it here. Fine, you saw it. It is a long while, and we are doing this at 50 kph, which is not that fast. So notice, this is like 2 car lengths, okay guys? This is how much the bike brakes, and this is a bike with normal brakes. Doesn't have spectacular brakes, but they're not very bad either. Now let's do it correctly. I'm going to show you going up there how it is. Look at the lever carefully. Now we squeeze and then we squeeze more, okay? The idea is that you put some pressure and then you slowly increase that pressure until you know that the bike is fully down, and then you can squeeze all you want. Okay, the ABS activated at the end, and still, look where I arrived. Now do you understand why this is important? Look at the difference. This was not correctly done, I can do better. But this is nearly 1 car length. Okay, this is half a car length. This is the difference between hitting the car harshly or stopping with enough space for a pedestrian to go by. Okay? This is why this technique is mega important. Do this correctly, even if you have ABS, because this distance is huge. Okay? I'm going to do it again because I want to stop here. Let's see if I can do that. Okay, granted, I cheated a little bit. I think I was at 47 instead of 50. I'd need cruise control. And to be honest, I could be doing this oh, bike track day, cool. In all honesty, I should be doing this a lot faster, like at 100 kph, where it's easier to keep the speed, but the braking distance would be too long and it just wouldn't work that well. Now, what to do with the rear brake on this? Well, with the rear brake, you only use a little portion of it, and remember, as you brake, your weight tilts forward, so this gets less and less grip, so it gets easier and easier to lock up. So what do? You start with a lot, because you have weight there, and then you start undoing it. When this is fully depressed, this is going to be nearly nothing. It helps that you're also kind of catapulted upwards, so your weight naturally comes off the pegs and the brake, but you get the idea. Wow, loud bikes. Okay, you can put, let me just close this. you can put engine braking in the mix. Engine braking is a bit, well, useless because your rear brake is much more powerful than your engine brake, but engine brake has this nice tendency of when the wheel is locking up, it tries to push the wheel forward because the engine likes to idle at 1000 RPM. So how do you do engine braking? It's kind of a way to kind of do ABS, especially if you don't have ABS. The idea is that you keep your clutch in the friction zone, smack dab in the middle of it, and then just click down, 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 down to get the revs up and make it help braking. I have found that this, not much use. This is much more important. This is 90% of the braking you have to do and learn. Once you master this, there's the difference. With engine braking, especially if you don't have ABS, you'd get a little bit more, okay? A little bit more distance. But this is the part that you need to learn, okay? Again, this is the difference between hitting and not hitting. So this is the gap you want. The rest is for that, for the racetrack. You don't really need all that finesse. For now, for beginners, learn this. And if you don't have ABS, the difference between braking and not braking is braking correctly and stopping like this, safely, okay? At the very most, a bit of a scare at the end because the bike suddenly slides. And as you see, we used to see in a lot of in a lot of video clips online that now no longer happen because most bikes have ABS nowadays. You would see riders getting to an obstacle, braking, and the bike just sliding out from under them, and then they would just go sliding along the pavement. Why? They got scared, they clamped on this hard, they locked the front wheel, and the bike just went like this, down. That gave rise to the awesome excuse that was, oh, I laid down my bike on purpose so that I wouldn't go and hit the car. It's a cool excuse. It's a very silly excuse because as soon as the bike is sideways, it's not rubber down, so it's not braking nearly as much. And if I did not have ABS and just slammed on the brakes as I did and stopped there with ABS, I would have laid down the bike and it would go sliding all the way into that car with me somewhere in between. So it's just an excuse of someone who screwed up, knew they screwed up, and had to save face. Again, what you want is quick until it starts braking, and then squeeze more and more and more and more. As it dives down, you squeeze more and more and more and more. So that's it. Go practice this first on an ABS bike and play the game of not activating ABS. Remember, every time you brake and you activate ABS on normal pavement, you lose. On dirt, on wet patches, etc., the ABS is a safety net, okay? But ideally, you do not want to activate ABS ever, because that means you did things correctly and you gain this whole space, okay? So, that's it. Go practice, and cage your out. I'm gonna go check out the bikes now.